I have Suzy, who's spelt the same as my Suzy, and no one's ever spelt the same way as my Suzy. Lovely to meet you here, to have you here, Suzy. This is this lovely Suzy Ashworth, who is a top coach, Hay House author, and international keynote speaker. Welcome, Suzy.
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here.
Yeah, it's our first day of lockdown, and we are just starting our campaign today for supporting everybody out there, as many people as we possibly can, to get through this next 30 days. So we've created a kind of beat anxiety lockdown guide that we will be, spreading out for free all the way through the next 30 days for people. And I know today, Suzy, we're going to be talking about how to deal with disappointment. So I think there's so many of us who were hoping that 2020 was going to be our big year, that was going to be really exciting. And, we had such plans. I had my big vision board and so many of the things that I wanted to do. So many of our readers, it just hasn't worked out the way that we thought it. So I know that, you're a top coach, and you're working with clients at a very profound level. So, but when we talked about what we could talk about today, disappointment, I think to reframe that is one of the most brilliant things I think we could talk about today. Yeah. So where do we start with reframing disappointment? People have lost their businesses. People have, they're going to get married this year. My son was supposed to go to this special thing next year, and that's not going to happen anymore. And we're just so disappointed. We're disappointed. How do we deal with it, Suzy?
Yeah, I think honestly, the first thing is to acknowledge where we are at. And I, as an individual, and the people that I work with, I encourage optimism. And I think that when things are bleak, that optimism is incredibly important. But before we get there, we need to actually acknowledge how it is that we do feel. And it's not even just the pandemic. There have been so many things that have dampened our spirits, to put it in the kind of lightest way. There have been so many horrendous things that have happened this year that have made us question ourselves, our families, and humanity. And I think that taking the time to acknowledge what comes up is a really powerful part of the process of healing disappointment, actually.
So step one is about acknowledging, absolutely. And is there a process to that? So when we say that, so for me, I write a lot in my diary. I have a journal, and I journal all the time. And my first step is, because as being editor of psychology, it's this thing, I've got to be positive all the time. Yeah. And I've got to allow myself to be really negative and go, this is how I feel. I'm so angry, or I'm so upset, or I'm so disappointed. And I do it in journaling, and then I get through it that way. That's where I can start. How would you suggest that we do it?
Actually, I'm a massive fan of journaling, and to take it one step beyond that, or I don't know, maybe it's a step back from that, the morning pages. And actually that commitment with the morning pages, just to write 3 pages of stream of consciousness, that I think can be even more powerful than journaling, which can be quite directive, like how do I feel about X? Really just allowing everything to come up that we're consciously thinking, but also in our subconscious. And I was talking about this just this morning with a group of people. It can be, you don't realize what it is that you've been holding on to at times, when you just allow it without any judgment, without needing to take it anywhere, just to come out onto the page. So actually, really, really, writing it down can be really powerful. And then the second thing is speak to someone who is a great listener. And sometimes that might be a friend, it might be a family, sometimes it is somebody who is more removed from your specific situation. But being able to voice how you feel is super important. I think that often, especially in the positive psychology movement, the idea that if we voice what it is that we're feeling, that we are going to bring more negativity into our life, I don't think is helpful, because anything that we hold on to becomes an energy leak. And so the minute we give it a voice, open our throat chakra and give it a voice, we release it, and then we create space for what it is that we do want to come in.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree with you enough with both of those things. So, interview Juliet. So Julia Cameron is the person who did who wrote a book called The Artist's Way, and her advice on the morning pages is to write 3 A4 pages every morning of stream of consciousness. And I admitted, I confessed to her that was the reason I divorced my first husband, because as I was writing it down, the same there, and it was all coming up, and there was nowhere to hide from it. You know, be interesting. So it doesn't mean you're going to divorce your husband, but it's a way of noticing what it is that you're doing. In terms of what you're saying is finding someone really a good listener to hear you, to create that space. I was interviewing Malcolm Stern recently, who's a fantastic psychotherapist who wrote Slay Your Dragons with Compassion in the magazine this month. And he was talking about sort of creating this space for people to be heard. And, you know, what advice would you give people around? So there's let yourself be heard, but also how do we really listen to other people? So as we go through lockdown, we need to really help people to create these spaces. How do we set up that space, Suzy?
Everything that I'm saying sounds so simple, but breathing, actually, really breathing. So when somebody expresses themselves, rather than trying to think about how you're going to respond, really just taking a breath. And I hear you, you know, saying to somebody, I hear what you're saying, and reflecting back in their words is sometimes all a person needs to feel seen and feel properly heard. And I think that is, I think that comes from compassionate communication. So really just, I hear what you're saying, and what I'm hearing is, and repeating back in somebody's words is such a glorious space for people to be received in. And then rather than responding immediately, asking for permission, can I respond to that, is really great. And when you set up the conversation and you say, this is how we're going to interact, that person then has the right to say, you know what, I'm not looking for a response, I just needed to be heard. And that can be so, so powerful, so powerful.
Yeah, you're right. So this idea of not wanting a response, it's just is, as you said, the power. I mean, the team and I, we have this thing of we'll ring each other up as psychologists and say, I don't need you to coach me. I don't need you to give me any advice. I just want you to hear my rant. And I wrote one of my team, I'm going to rant at you 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. Much bye. And that's all that's needed to do that. So in terms of, in the context of, you know, disappointment, finding people to be like, just for, do we put it, the thing I worry about is when I do that, I always give a time limit on it. I said, I'm just going to flow for 10 minutes.
Yes.
With my stream of consciousness, I let wallow, but normally I kind of, at the end of my 3 pages or the end of my journaling, I pop up
complete,
because I can't bear my own negativity. And it, sort of ideas start popping through the words. But do we limit the amount of time that we can express our disappointment?
I feel like we've come from the same school. So for sure, compartmentalizing things, I think, can be really helpful depending on your level of disappointment and the level of, you know, often we are traumatized by our disappointment, or can be traumatized by our disappointment.
Heartbroken.
Yeah. So when you're in that space, 5 minutes or 10 minutes might not be enough for you to completely clear what it is that you need to clear. By telling yourself, setting it up, so I'm going to use this 10 minutes or use this 15 minutes to express how I want to express, and then I'm going to come back to it tomorrow. And then I give myself 10 or 15 minutes tomorrow to express what I need to express. Am I clear? No. Okay, I'm going to put it in the box, and then I'm going to come back to it. So you get to soothe yourself. You're not hiding anything away. You're not stuffing it down. But by giving yourself that time frame, you're not then spending days and days, weeks, months, years in that pain. You visit it, you give it the airtime that it requires in a confined period, and then come back.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say you've vented, I call it vomiting, you vomit on the pain, get it all out, you vomit to a friend for a limited amount of time. And then what do we do? How do we start reframing it? You know, say such bitter disappointments this year for so many of us. How do we start reframing it in a way that feels authentic, that doesn't feel like that kind of, well, I'll just be positive? Because as we go into our second lockdown, often we just think, really, what is there to be positive? So how do we reframe it in a really authentic way?
I think the first thing that we all have to do is really change the relationship that we have with time. So often you will find that the way that we talk about time is that I'm always running out of it. There's never enough time. This needs to be done now. If I have to wait for longer than 3 minutes, then the world is ending. And actually, one of the most beautiful things about the first lockdown was this pause that everybody was forced to take. And within that pause, within that space, we were able to access thoughts, feelings, fears, dreams, hopes, aspirations, and think about things in a very different way, because we weren't able to overload ourselves with distraction. And so there's a couple of things in there. One is really knowing that 30 days is only 30 days of the rest of our lifetime. And so what we thought was going to happen in November, maybe that's not going to happen now, but it doesn't mean that it's never going to happen. And we do get to choose when it does happen. And we also might need to reimagine how the thing that we thought was going to happen happens. But we do get that option. And so it's that really, I think the first thing is just knowing that it's only 30 days of the rest of our lifetime, and we are in control of the rest of our lifetime.
Yeah. And well, I think that what you've just said there about we are in control of the rest of our lifetime. And I think there's some things we cannot control in the situation, but can control.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, as you say, your relationship with time is one of them, you know.
Yeah.
You can see it differently. You know, this pandemic will end. It will. And so okay, so the building the relationship with time, you know, kind of giving yourself hope and optimism that it's only 30 days, so it's reframing. And then what? And then how do we take it, just reach up that little bit more hope? Where do we go there?
I think one of the most powerful, and I will go as far as saying life-changing affirmations that I have used for many, many years is everything is always working out for me. And really choosing to lean into that. So even when things have looked horrendous, even when I've been in the eye of the storm, is really choosing, and this is the glass is half full, you know, and it's super powerful. When I've not known what was going on or why certain things were happening in the world, really choosing to believe that everything is always working out for me. You've got that meme that goes around on Instagram, everything's going to be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end. Really helpful for just knowing that I get to choose to know that this is going to be okay.
Sure. I mean, so I think one of my greatest beliefs is about whatever that when the most terrible things have happened to me, you know, I lost my parents when I was a teenager, both to cancer, that's the thing that's made me grow the most. So obviously, anyone listening to this, when we're losing people, or it is the most terrible thing in the world. However, you know, the piece is it will expand your ways in ways that you'd never ever thought possible. Because for me, it knocks me into looking into self-development and finding ways to grow and to flourish and all of those things. And I would not be the person that I am today without it. Not that I would ever wish that on anyone. But again, you know, in the article this month, we've got Malcolm Stern talking about exactly this when his daughter committed suicide. Of course, in a million years, I want that ever to happen. But from that, he found his meaning and purpose. So he could go out and talk about, you know, we all have a choice, and this is how to face your demons with compassion. His message and all of his writing is about this now.
Yes.
Which, you know, is incredible. So I think that kind of, as you say, that things are working out. It's just that this sense of, because it's difficult to get your head around that when it's really dark and it's you know, you're so completely devastated by what's happening. But
I really resonate. Sorry, I was going to say I really resonate with everything that you've just said. You know, one of my biggest motivations, I lost my mother, my foster mother at 19 and my foster father at 23. And I have said many, many times it was the greatest gift that I could have been given. And I wouldn't be working with the people that I work with in the way that I work with them if I hadn't had that loss. And so that real, and again, sometimes you have to be in it. You have to be in it for a while, but choosing to look for the gift and the lesson in every difficult situation, and there's always a gift, there's always a lesson, without exception. And so asking yourself, what do I get to learn from this, is a powerful journaling question.
It's and it's a, you know, in terms of lockdown, in terms of feeling empowered. So not just to survive lockdown, but
to thrive.
Empowered for it to literally transform your life. And I know that just, it's an ambitious ask at this, you know, we're in November, the end of year, really tough year for so many of us. We've lost our businesses, we've lost people we've loved, you know, you haven't been able to get married to other people that we want to be married to, all of these things, all these huge, big disappointments. However, it's like, if you can choose to see the opportunity on the growth or the gift in it, it's a really big ask. But I believe, like you believe, that this is where the, you know, where the magic is. You know,
100%. And I think taking it, and it is a big ask, but I believe that your readers and the people that consume psychologies are in the best place to be the people to really tune into that. And I think taking that one step further, really thinking in this space where we get to pause again, really thinking about the role that we get to play as individuals when we allow ourselves to see our role in that bigger picture. So it's not just us and our immediate families, but the community, and then the people even beyond our immediate community, and really start to think about, how can I be of service? How can I help? How can I make a difference? And I think that when you are able to start thinking in those terms and then take action, even the smallest action, to make a difference to people beyond yourself and beyond your immediate family, that is an incredible opportunity. And that's where we all get to feel super empowered. And I think that in this world right now, where we can feel so separate, anything that unifies us on a bigger scale, I think it's desperately needed. And when you can be part of that actively and consciously, again, you change the way that you feel. And that's, you know, that's what we're talking about.
So yeah, I just want to cheer, you know, with every word that you say, because I think that's absolutely right. So, you know, this is at the end of the year, this is what we need. We need to come together, and we need all to come together as a community, and not, I mean, we know this, to separate and to fight. And there's so much aggro at the moment, so much anger. It's about expressing our anger, but it's like, okay, but how can I help? Channel anger. Let's be empowered with it to say, okay, I am going to make the world a better place by doing this. It might be a small thing.
Yes.
It might be just letting someone else in the traffic, or it might be just knocking on a neighbor and taking them something round, or whatever it is. But it's just, how can you as yourself be of service, and how can you help? Ruby, we did a big cover interview with her this month, and she's written this amazing book called Now for the Good News, which to all of these communities all over the world who are finding there's a new world out there of people coming together doing amazing things. I mean, we look at what's going on in the way, and we can feel quite gloomy about what's happening in the world right now. But actually, there are loads and loads of grassroots organizations and communities that are doing amazing, brilliant things. And let's start reading about them. Let's start to do lots of organizations on here that are doing exactly that. That are a part of this new world, this new thinking, and it's out there, and that is about optimism and hope. And maybe this year has done exactly what you said. It's been called the Great Pause, just to give pause for thought, that we've been so busy and on this treadmill of consumption. You press pause and go, is this what we really want? And what's important to me?
What is important to me? I interviewed a lady called Ra Goddess, and she said, right now, optimism is an act of revolution. And the invitation, the question is do you want to be part of the revolution? And I say, yes.
Wow. I love that. Optimism is an act of revolution. Oh my God. Unfortunately, I've gone way over the time, but I just wanted to say with Suzy, you have got a Quantum Success Hub, which is working. All the details are below, but you're doing a Facebook challenge next week for female entrepreneurs. I know at Psychologies, a lot of our readers are using this opportunity to pivot careers, change careers, build businesses, create a side hustle. And again, this awful thing of many of us have been made redundant, many of us are struggling to make ends meet. So I love the idea. Well, we did a whole dossier about it last month about how to pivot your career, all of those things. So if you want to get in touch with Suzy, just join her Quantum Success Hub on Facebook. Suzy, thank you so much for your wisdom today. It's been fantastic chatting to you. I'd love you to come back and talk to us more. I love your ideas.
Thank you so much.
It's been brilliant. All right, love, and I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.